Hello! It's been a long time since I made a video. I'm back. I haven't really felt like I had anything useful to say. I'm not just going to put out content because I want to get numbers or whatever. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to just add noise to an already noisy place if I don't actually think that I have value to add. So today I kind of want to jump into a topic that is very close to my heart, has been profoundly useful in the way that I look at the world, in the way that I make decisions, the way that I plan to deal with tragedy. I have Genesis 6 in front of me right now. I may use it, I may not use it, but this is all inspired by the Jordon Peterson biblical lecture called Walking with God, Noah and the Ark, something along those lines. If you like what I say in this video here, check that out. You know, this is a real world example of it working. Another thing that's maybe valuable to mention here is this. What I'm going to do today, what we're going to talk about today, is the way that I look at the Bible and read the Bible. It does not matter to me whether the Bible is true or not. And by true, I mean a book of historical facts. I don't care. I don't care about that. And if you watch my atheism versus theism video, that'll give you another taste kind of the angle that I'm coming from here. But I don't care if it's true or not. I really don't. What's valuable to me is, are there lessons here that when I put them into place, they make my life better? That's the whole point of the Bible and stories, for that matter. When I watch Breaking Bad, it's so dark, it's so real, but it didn't happen. Watching Walter slowly change as he kind of sacrificed one value for something else, and he just kind of slowly tweaked who he was until by the end of season 3, he's a different person entirely. And in episode 1, Walter would never dream of even being in the circumstance that episode 1, season 3 Walter is in. And so you just see how tiny little decisions, as you start to kind of betray your morals, will lead you down a path that eventually the only form of redemption is death, essentially. The fact that Breaking Bad is not a story that took place on a historical level in Albuquerque, New Mexico, does not make it a less impactful story for me at all whatsoever. And I look at the Bible the exact same way. So what I want to talk about today is the impact that the story of Noah has had on me, the way that it has influenced the decisions that I have made, and why I think that has been a positive in my life. That was a long intro, I'm sorry. So let's do this. So, and I'm literally just focusing on one little verse from Noah. Now, obviously, we know the story of Noah. Mankind became evil. God decided to destroy them all, which a lot of atheists have a lot of fun with that, and they say that God is evil for that. But if you just look at it as a fairy tale or a story, then the atheists come across looking really, really stupid and shallow for pouncing on such an obvious non-truism. If any of the people who I'm talking about ever watch this video, you know exactly who you are. God was upset with humanity. They were not serving him the way that they were supposed to, and so he decided, maybe I need to restart. Maybe I need to find the best of the best, and maybe I need to give him a chance to restart humanity. So he warns Noah that a flood is coming, and he tells Noah to warn everybody else, but nobody else listens. Noah's like, whatever, I'm going to be building this ark. It doesn't really matter to me if nobody else wants to get on here. For me and my family, yes, we're going to be saved. So it starts by giving us a little bit of it gives us some context about who Noah is in the grand scheme of things. And this is the verse that we're going to be focusing on. And I'm going to be leaning a little bit on a few phrases that Jordon Peterson says in his lecture series about this story. So it says in verse 9, or in chapter 6 of Genesis. So starting one sentence in to verse 9, it says, Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. So if you watch the Jordon Peterson lecture, he kind of hits on this for a while, and he says, I could almost quote it perfectly, but I'm going to paraphrase it here. He says, for a long time, I did not understand what it meant when it said that he was perfect in his generations. However, when you're reading a story or a book as complicated as the Bible, nothing is in there by accident. If you think about the way that the Bible was organized and constructed, it was all of these stories that kind of got distilled and distilled and distilled into just the most memorable bits. And because they weren't written immediately after they were conceived, they were used orally for a long time, and then they were written down. So everything that's in here is something that was able to be remembered over the generations. And so that actually is important. The fact that it made it in here after so many years of being just an oral story, it is relevant and kind of a big deal. So when it says that Noah was a man who was perfect in his generations, that's not just nothing. So what Peterson says is, I thought about that for a long time, and knowing that nothing is in the Bible by accident. In fact, if you miss something that's in the Bible, you're stupid. Those are his words. He says, if you read something and it doesn't make sense to you, then you need to think about it, because it should make sense to you, because it's there for a reason. What does it mean? And this is what he says, and I agree with him. He says, Noah was a man who was perfect in his generations. Okay, so Noah had kids. And so what was his relationship like with each of his children? Well, it was straightened out to the point that he could rely on them in a time of need, right? So maybe he has an issue with one of his sons. Maybe him and one of his sons just don't get along. So he goes to that son and they do conflict resolution and they fix it. And they make sure that they both know where they were coming from, and they apologize for the hand that they each had in things getting out of control, and they fix their relationship. Okay. Noah has a wife. So maybe things haven't always been great. Maybe they were rocky at one point. So he goes to his wife and he says, this is where we have been. Maybe this is where we are, but I would like to be here. I would like to be stable with you. And so what can we do to get there? And so they figure it out, two people working together to get to a place where they're both happy to be in that relationship. Okay, so he does it with his kids. He does it with his wife. Now maybe he has maybe he has grandparents who are still alive. Maybe he didn't always get along with them. Maybe he has parents who are still alive. Maybe he didn't always get along with them. So what does he do? He goes to each party individually and he says, I don't like where we are. I would like to be in a better place. How can we get there? And he resolves, just builds a web around himself. And that is a metaphor for what he's going to do on this boat later, right? Because the storm's going to come, and what's around him? Protection. He has built a web of protection and security around him and his family because he did the work when the flood wasn't there. So now I'm going to talk about that happening in my actual life, okay? So without going into too much detail, I will try and tell a very, very personal story for various reasons that I won't get into, partially because this is not the place, and partially because I'm not aware of every single side of every single detail of every single issue. But I will say it broadly. I will say this. My parents did not always get along with their parents on both sides. And so I was raised not really feeling like I had a relationship with my grandparents on either side. And because of that, because of the strained relationship with, my dad and his side and my mom and her side, I didn't really have a good connection with my cousins, my aunts or my uncles, a lot of them. Some of them, we still managed to work things out. They were in good standing with my parents. Some of them, not so much. And this always felt weird to me, but it was also because I was raised with it and because it was on both sides, I almost thought that was normal, even though a part of it felt strange. And so I didn't really think much of it. I grew up, I went on a mission, I came home from my mission, still thought it was strange. While I was gone, things had gotten worse. I got married around the age of 23, and my wife's family was very different than mine. My wife's grandparents were super involved in their life. They lived in the same city. They saw them all the time. They were super nice. They it was weird. They wanted to go on big family trips together. Like it was a situation that I wasn't used to, and it got the gears kind of rolling for me. And I started to think that maybe what she was experiencing was more normal and what I was experiencing was less normal. Within 10 months of getting married, seeing that my wife's family is so different and the relationship that she has with her grandparents is so much better than what I have and something that I would like to have, my dad's mom dies. And her husband, my grandpa, had died before I was born. Her and my dad weren't on speaking terms at the time. Her death was really unexpected, and it kind of all just hit us all over the head. One morning, somebody went to go wake her up, and she wasn't there anymore. And this was really, really hard for me because I had hoped that her and my dad would resolve their issues before that time had come. And both of them wanted that too, you know. Obviously, who would want things to end on a note like that? But it was in that moment that I realized that you don't get to choose when the tragedies come, that you just get to do your best to build that arc around you when things are still okay. And in fact, when they're not okay is too late. So I went to the funeral, and I was well aware of the fact that on my mom's side of the family, they were also not on speaking terms. And I was sitting at the funeral, and I told myself, I don't care if they resolve things between themselves at this point. I'm old enough to make a bridge for myself. And so it took me a while after the funeral, but I did go and I did put that back together. I went to my grandparents and I basically said, I don't care about whatever's going on between you guys and my mom. That's not important to me. What is important to me is that I have a family and I have grandparents and my son has great grandparents. The concept that I'm getting at here doesn't just apply to family. You know, maybe you have a friend who things have kind of gone awry with, and you don't want things to end that way permanently. And I think that there's a good reason to try to fix those relationships. Now, this is the part of the story that becomes very personal, and I'm going to be very careful about what I share. But I had a cousin who very, very recently passed away, and he was my age. And I was sitting at his funeral, and I was looking around at all the people who were there, and I was looking at my aunt and my uncle who had just lost a son, and I was looking at everybody who was in attendance, and I just thought, we are their arc. You don't get to add more people to this boat now. Everybody who made sure that they knew that they were important to them before this tragedy happened is on the boat now, and everybody who had maybe previously burned a bridge or, you know, said something that they didn't mean is not here because they kind of can't be. I don't know what's going on in your life, and so I don't know if it's good advice to say go fix relationships with people who you currently have a rocky relationship with. I don't know your past. I don't know who those people are. I don't know their intentions. I don't know any of that. But I will say this. If you feel like there's a relationship that you miss, that you feel like you could put back together, I will tell you from my personal experience that it's worth trying. And so that's it. Don't really want to say anything other than that. But yeah, I hope that this video finds you all well. If you stayed till the end and watched everything, you know, thank you. Send this to somebody who have a beautiful day, everybody, and I'll be back soon.